Hello everybody, thank you for taking the time to watch my video for Project Created 2. One of my favorite quotes from this module was from Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, when he said, "The best moments in our lives are not the passive, receptive, relaxing times. The best moments usually occur if a person's body or mind is stretched to its limits in a voluntary effort to accomplish something difficult and worthwhile." I learned that creativity requires metacognitive thinking. I've recently been doing a lot of cognitive internal delving, which spurs metacognitive thinking and expansion of my mind, like Csikszentmihalyi was talking about. I didn't characterize this as creative thinking, however, but put in this light, it definitely fits the descriptors. And according to the module Creative Thinking and Finding Your Flow, Evidence for the Creative Person, creativity is a cognitive, metacognitive, and affective skill set that is based on a higher order of thinking. I also learned about the flow channel, which aims for your flow to come to you when you're not too stressed, but also not too bored with your work or project. There's a happy intermediate and middle that you have to find to reach that stage. This comes to me occasionally in class when I'm learning or piecing together parts of subjects I find super interesting. They also mentioned finding a flow in making a business, and I felt that as well. I created a camp in the past few years and a website for it as well, that I used to run, and I had never made that kind of thing before, but making it, I was excited and invigorated by my work and the potential that came with it. I was definitely in my flow at that point. One myth which I found surprising was that most people consider creativity to be for the elite. When it's first thought of, it's widely presumed that people are discussing great well-known artists throughout history, such as our Professor Diasio was talking about, is that children are the only ones who can be creative. I understand the misconception to a certain degree, and many children have the innate ability built into them to be creative, but are also allowed to explore on a daily basis with their toys, their education, their lives, and their free time. However, once somebody grows older, responsibilities come into play. It is assumed that more and more as they grow up, there are strict guidelines to follow, and those guidelines follow the quote-unquote right path to becoming an adult. There are certain expectations, pathways, and goals that society expects of you once you become older. Even artists who get to explore their creative side as a career are still burdened by society, as we don't value their efforts enough to a monetary degree, which is enough to support them solely focusing on their art. These myths surprised me because I have experienced all kinds of creativity from children and adults, so I never necessarily presumed that it was only limited to one category of humans. Additionally, I work with kids all the time, and when I do, I can see how, even as an adult, I'm able to connect with them creatively and release my own creative habits, as the children's have very few societal expectations imprinted upon myself. Therefore, this myth is largely due to how others perceive you and societal expectations. It's crazy to me that we can base our entire lives off of expectations such as these and don't recognize it as an issue with the lack of creativity in all fields. Creativity is important to all companies and organizations because creative solutions are needed everywhere. Historically, classical liberalism, which has led to our modern way of capitalism, has imprinted ideals into all of our heads that money is the only and the correct way to gain freedom. However, in doing this and making money, many people are forced to work Monday to Friday in repetitive jobs which do not allow their brain to expand and push itself to its creative potential's limit. If creativity was encouraged in different fields, there could be great potential for innovative solutions to help issues such as declining environment and social concerns. Each individual could potentially work on alleviating issues such as this from a bottom-up approach. In the podcast by James Taylor, he discusses upper management and creativity. I believe that creativity is especially important to not only use, but also encourage and reproduce throughout the entire business structure stemming from management. Two common approaches to creative thinking are divergent and convergent thinking. Both divergent and convergent thinking are important to creating solutions and potential ideas to solve problems. Divergent thinking focuses on generating a plethora of ideas, kind of like freestyling, spitballing, or drafting. In divergent thinking, you shouldn't focus on too much judgment on each idea or how each one would be completed. It's difficult to enact this type of thinking solely, but it's a good type of practice for creative thinking. Convergent, on the other hand, is more analytical and useful in narrowing down the potential solutions found after thinking with a divergent lens. While it seems more straight-laced and hard-edged, it is necessary for practical solutions in our world. These solutions, however, do not necessarily mean that they cannot be creative. They just have to be possible convergent thinking. A real-world example of creative change model would be my own life progression after high school. It had been assumed that I would just go straight into college to continue my learning and to get a degree which I would then use to go into the workforce. I went through the process of applying to different colleges and scholarships, as well as discovering what I did and didn't look for in a place of education. However, personally, I was not ready to go and to continue my educational journey right after high school. My environment was certainly a factor. My parents were willing, or at least tolerant, about the idea of me taking a different route than what had been assumed I would take. Out of this conclusion, I researched possible ideas or solutions to my dilemma. I found multiple resources online, and once I narrowed down potential ideas of what and where I wanted to go, I explained the basics to my family and started planning the details from there. Adopting this solution required courage and ingenuity as I had no concrete plans for the next year at the moment. I had a place to live and save some money, and I used this money to go work on my Spanish and travel, as well as work as an internship, leading volunteer groups and organizing hundreds of gifts during Christmas toy drive. Without this change, I would have been stagnant and stuck in the same unfulfilled and lost position, but making this change affected my life immensely.